2025 was a great year for Gachiakuta, not just for the manga, obviously, for all you manga fans out there like myself, but the anime came out with its first season, and it was great. Really good adaptation, it was paced very well, and some of the best moments in the manga were adapted pretty faithfully, and were elevated, especially for a good number of fights, for especially the second half of the first season. Everything with Amo was great, the first interaction with Jabber was, honestly, no notes whatsoever. And the voice acting was phenomenal with a simul-dub, which was great.
It's your boy, Jabber!
Want a taste?
But then there were two episodes behind with the dubbing after the second course started airing. I don't know what the deal with that was. Either way, anime was great, and Season 2 is currently in production. And we're also getting a video game for Gachiakuta as well to come out in the future. We have no clue when that's coming out. My best guess, 2027, the earliest, latest 2028, depending on how far in production it already is outside of the teaser trailer we got already. By the way, we're getting a Gachiakuta video game. Seems like an action survivor adventure game or whatever. Who knows? It could be good, it could be okay. Who knows? But the manga for Gachiakuta has been insane in 2025. Last time I talked about it, spoilers if you haven't watched my video from almost 2 years ago when I talked about this massive reveal, but we figure out who killed Recto, Rudo's father. We see what's going on with Tamsi and his whole intentions, because, well, he is fucking evil and twisted. So there's a lot going on. We had stuff going on with the information broker as well, with some nice juicy lore revealed in that section. But in 2025, we got even more lore. We have new antagonists, we got new powers, and we might be fighting the strongest character in the series up at this point. And Rudo discovers some new stuff about the Watchmen series, and we get some twisted darkness in the world of Gachiakuta that I feel like we're still just scraping the surface of. So buckle up, because this video is just going to be a brief recap of the events of 2025. This is just a brief recap of the stuff that's happened in the manga thus far. Obviously, it's not going to be like my usual reviews and stuff like that, where I go beat by beat in detail with dialogue and stuff like that. This is just the baseline plot of what happened and my general thoughts on it. So, get ready. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and hype up the video in order to boost it in the algorithm. Really helps, shows you guys enjoy what I make here on the channel, and shows you want to see more. I would love to talk about Gachiakuta on the regular on this channel, whether it be chapter reviews or some other stuff. So please, let me know. I would love to talk about this series a lot more, because my god, is it so much fun to read, and I need someone to talk about it with. Even if it's just random strangers on the internet. I really do love a Fortnite's The Apocalypse and Fairy Tail. I can do this with Gachiakuta all day. But without further ado, let's jump right into this video. So, where did I leave off with when I last talked about Gachiakuta? Well, it was the Tamsi reveal. The reveal that Tamsi was the one that not only managed to get up to the sphere and kill Recto, and managed to steal a Watchmen series book that Recto seemingly had, but he pinned the whole thing on Rudo, thus leading Rudo into the pit. And he was also the one that saved Amo, but gave Amo the Watchmen series book, as he was the angel that we were teased with in Amo's backstory, as the angel that appeared was a part of his vital instrument, basically creating like a puppet with his ropes and stuff like that, which was an insane thing to do. And he also, well, captured Amo, and held her for a long time, wiped her memory clean of who held her captive, up until Rudo found her. And thus gave us everything with the information broker arc, where the raiders and the cleaners were fighting to catch the information broker Kuro, as he went into a no man's land jungle to have the cleaners basically try and kill this massive kaiju trash beast that was made of vines and stuff. That whole section of the story basically amounted to Rudo finding a Watchmen series, or at least a box, engraved with the symbol of the Watchmen series, which belonged to his long ancestor, Canis Sherbrick, the creator of the Watchmen series. And basically, he had a will, after they fought a bit against Zodal again, and we got some massive plot beats in that as well. As one of the members of the Raiders, Momoa, with her insane vital instrument headphones, was able to touch Kuro in the ensuing chaos of the fight against the massive trash beast in that no man's land, but got a huge influx of hundreds of years of memories, to the point where she basically became unconscious and comatose. As Kuro anticipated this and revealed that he's somebody that has been looking for information and has just wanted to look for answers for certain things over these years, to the point where he has lost his own original form and still wants to figure out what's going on. But through those memories, we basically learned that the world of Gachiakuta is a post-apocalyptic future. We get images of what seems like people in a conference room, like government officials, talking about the creation of trash beasts, how impossible that is. We see someone's first-person perspective chasing after Canis Sherbrick before he does something. These are bits of information, well, basically piles and piles, years of information that Momoa absorbed into her consciousness through her vital instrument. And Kuro gave her, I believe it was a month or two, to basically wake up, because that was going to be how long it was going to take her to process the information and finally wake up. So the Raiders are basically inactive for the time being, and so now Zodal has a head start on a bunch of information pertaining to the past of the ground, of the Gachiakuta world. But Rudo also got very vague information, because within the box that he grabbed from underneath the trash beast, with the Watchman symbol that he made into a giant kaiju trash monster, a giant monster, vital instrument with his gloves, there was Canis Sherbrick's last will and testament. But a vast majority of the information and things that he wrote down on that will have been basically redacted, either withered away or just completely blacked out, which could give us vital information and names to specific events that potentially even led to the potential death of Canis Sherbrick, or how the sphere and the ground became the way they are. Adding more onto the grander mysteries of this whole series. But an interesting piece of dialogue that was in the will was Canis saying he couldn't stop the humans. What does that mean? Was he something that wasn't human? Did he stop being human? Was something else going on? We don't know, and that piles on the mysteries of what happened. Now, obviously, since they got, Kuro, they basically caught him, he was able to answer some questions. One of them being Amo's location and what's going on with the choker holder, with everything that was going on. Because one of the main reasons why they went off to find the information broker Kuro was to ask for the location and information on the person that created the chokers. Basically, everyone on the ground has these chokers that allow them to communicate through long distances. They're like cell phones, or walkie-talkies, essentially. But the person who made them is also capable of listening in on people's conversations, so they have to be very careful over how they communicate with other people. Which is incredibly smart and adds a bit of mystery and intrigue over the person that created the chokers in the first place, which will eventually lead us into the upcoming arc, which would be the Doll Festival arc, which at the point of recording is in seemingly the climactic moments and fight of the arc in the manga right now, but I'll get to those details in just a second. Before we get to that arc, we basically get a mini arc and a bit of prep before this happens. Obviously, August has to get costumes and stuff ready for the Doll Festival, because it's basically just one giant cosplay convention, essentially. And there's a lot of Easter eggs that I'll get into later when we jump into that section of the story. But Rudo talks with Corvus after everything that's happened. The man who is the head of the cleaners, and the man is f***ing awesome. But either way, Corvus reveals to Rudo the true purpose of the cleaners. It's not really just to, protect people and to stop the trash beasts. It's mainly to find and gather information on the world before. As we saw in the investigation brokers arc that I just mentioned, we learned that this world is basically post-apocalyptic. But Corvus reveals that there's a bunch of redacted information, stuff that has been wiped from history books, books that have been so worn down that they can't be read. Ink has disappeared, the books are partially destroyed. No real records of the old world seem to exist anywhere. And so Corvus, entrusting in Rudo, basically gives him this vital reveal to him for the true purpose of the cleaners and asks for his help, which Rudo agrees to. Now, obviously, there's some allusion that maybe Zodal and Corvus might be related in some way, shape, or form, like they were friends in the past. Maybe they're rivals in some sense of the word, since they both seem to want similar to the same thing in terms of, information. and what's going on in the past, but Zodal wants to, find out about the sphere and bring it down out of, wanting to deal a real shock to the system of this world in general. So there could be something with that. And I'm very curious to see if that is the case, because I would love to finally get Corvus's vital instrument real, because that is still completely unknown. But outside of everything going on with Corvus, Tansy is scheming in the background. And during this preparation, Tansy goes with Rudo alongside our main supporters that have been with Team Akuta, the team that Engine is in charge of, that has Rudo, Ryo, and Zanka, as we have Follo, Grease, and Tome joining for a mission out in a different section of a canyon area of the ground for a Trash Beast extermination. Now then, Rudo has a new outfit, new uniform and stuff like that, new face. We got all the works for Rudo's brand new outfit. But the main thing about this is that it's essentially a solo job for Rudo. Yes, Tamsy's there, but he's mostly there to help guide him, essentially. Nobody knows that Tansy is a backstabbing bastard, by the way, but that's still a thing. This is mainly for Rudo to try and figure out this stuff on his own, because it's likely that he'll have to be sent out on missions by himself and not with the rest of Team Akuta. So that is definitely something that Rudo will have to do, and that's what this mini-arc is initially pitched to be. But during this arc, we get to know Follo, the supporter, a lot better. We get his backstory showing how he and his friends essentially wanted to become givers, especially this one friend of his with a hammer. And after seeing everything going on with Zanka in the past, Follo basically has a sense of inferiority, wanting to be somebody, wanting to be a giver, but people pushing him down, saying he'll never reach those heights, and that will never happen to a nobody like him, and him having to deal with the despair while trying to cling on to that hope of becoming somebody that can do something, to the point where him and Rudo have obvious misunderstandings and arguments over obvious miscommunications. And that leads to them in this fight against this Monster House Trash Beast, which, yes, this Trash Beast are fighting. I have high likelihood that this is a reference to the old early 2000s 3D stop motion movie, Monster House. Can you tell my age yet? I was a kid when I watched that horror movie. My god, how did that air on kids' television? Anyway, in that fight, Rudo is basically going through a lot of his items to try and take out the Trash Beast, and Tamsy's kind of just doing the bare minimum, making it seem like he's helping, but basically wanting to push Rudo more. He's trying to use Follo as a way to help make Rudo's rage grow and basically try and corrupt Rudo, make him go into despair, because he has plans for Rudo going forward. But when Follo is critically injured, and Rudo goes to help him, and that's when we get the backstory for Follo, Rudo basically seemingly helps Follo awaken to the powers of a giver, giving him this sick-ass hammer, a vital instrument, as Follo basically helps take down this Trash Beast. And my god, Follo's vital instrument is sick as hell. This giant hammer works as a shield and as a weapon. Basically, he's able to shield himself with the hammer, and thanks to his, based off of his backstory, being able to, temper himself and hold in that, anger and stuff like that, it's basically folded into the hammer. The power builds up as he then unleashes it onto the Trash Beast, as he eventually does, destroyed with a massive explosive swing. And it is so satisfying. But Rudo's first job is essentially complete. But what's interesting is that Tome, while seeing everything going on, noticed something weird with Tansy. Seems that Tansy was not really trying to help. This puts Tome in an interesting spot, as she is seemingly the first person, outside of potentially Corvus at this point, to seemingly notice something off with Tansy. So that is definitely a future plot beat that we'll definitely get into in the future eventually. Also, this section of the story is where Keorana, the genius mangaka, decided, you know what, let me just do my own version of the absolute cinema meme, as Tansy literally is saying, wait, Rudo helped Follo get his powers with the power of friendship? Clasps his hands and just says, you know what, I can work with that. Which honestly, that's honestly hilarious. I gotta find a way to incorporate that into the thumbnail if I can of this video, for all I know.
It's beautiful.
But either way, best meme done for the series thus far at that point. I laughed when that happened. But yeah, we end up learning at the end of this arc that somehow Rudo managed to use his glove's power to transplant a bit of his anima, his energy that helps create and activate vital instruments, to basically help Follo awaken as a giver. We don't have specifics on how people awaken as givers. Some people train to get that. Some people have enough love and care and compassion for their precious objects that they awaken them in some big moment. But we don't get a bunch of full explanations on how you awaken as a giver. What happened with Follo seems to be an exception to the rule, and only probably due to Rudo and Follo coming to a bit of an understanding and finding common ground and just, basically forgiving each other, with Rudo basically using his gloves as a conduit to feed his anima into Follo and give him a jolt, awakening his powers as a giver. Which basically bumps Follo up from a supporter to a giver to be a part of the Cleaners now, in full force, as a new ally, which is fantastic. But it's not just Follo that is going to be added onto the Cleaners. Fu and Amo are joining. Now, in the previous arc at the end of Season 1 with the Raiders arc, Fu basically just went over to the Cleaners because he wanted somebody to give him orders and figured he'd be better off with the Cleaners since Zoto doesn't seem to want him anymore. And the Information Broker arc, he basically uses alternate persona thanks to his vital instrument He or Hai, I don't know how I pronounce it. I would say He or Hai. But uses Hai, helps them out in a fight against Jabber and a bunch of trash beasts. And so he's basically a preliminary member of the Cleaners, and he plays a role in this upcoming arc. Amo gets a brand new outfit, really nice, really sweet, and she and Ryo seem to kind of have a bit of a bonding moment off screen, but she is now part of the team and is going to be joining Rudo and all of Team Akuta to the Doll Festival arc. Now before all this, Corvus and Tamsi have a brief interaction where Tamsi is asking for a vacation. That'll come into play later. But we also learn that Semyu is basically trying to engrave a name onto her vital instrument glasses. It's revealed that she has kept a name from being engraved on her glasses for a while because that would boost her powers so much to the point where she could potentially see the future, but the strain would potentially cause her to go blind. But due to everything that's been going on lately, Semyu thinks that the price is worth it. And so it seems like she's getting ready to engrave a name onto her vital instrument to boost its powers, which is a very big deal. But we are moving on to the Doll Festival arc, where it's also revealed that the Hell Guard are coming in, where we're getting introduced to Zonka's older brother. So the Hell Guard's joining in because there seems to be some sort of threats going on with the Doll Festival as well, since there seem to be hints of that. But also, we end up getting them wanting to essentially try and maybe snap Rudo as well to kind of figure out what's going on with the sphere and all that stuff. But the Doll Festival appears, and I just love when the opening chapters that was going on right here, Kirana decides to reference other weekly shonen magazine or Kodansha properties in this section at the beginning of this arc, where we get Follo's Jaw Titan, we get Sun Raku from Strangler Frontier, we get the glamorous guy, I forgot his name, from Blue Lock, we get Geo and Mirade from Galaxius, and this is during the time when Galaxius was still a weekly magazine, in Weekly Shonen Magazine at the time before it went bi-weekly. Also, I covered a series with every single chapter. I will probably put the playlist somewhere. And not only that, we also see a little bit of a tiny Excalibur from Soul Leader in there as well, which is funny because she used to be an assistant to Otsuchi Okubo, the person that did Soul Leader in Fire Force. She was an assistant on Fire Force. But yeah, we got those nice little references. It was fun to point out. But the events of the Doll Festival begin, and a new character is introduced called Tu Lily, a very popular idol, essentially, of this world and singer on the ground. And Rudo wins a lottery, it was rigged by the way, to go and meet Tu Lily and basically have one item, essentially. So Tu Lily and Rudo have a bit of a private conversation since she used her vital instrument to make a tent for them. And Tu Lily is a bit of an airhead, as she just says a couple of things like, the name of Rudo's father, a few things that kind of trigger him for an instance, but it's revealed that the Gauntis, the choker maker, had a special choker made that is just a limited communication device between Gauntis, the creator of the chokers, and Rudo. And he basically found a way to get Tu Lily to give this to Rudo, as he basically foresaw them coming to the Doll Festival, and that's basically it. And this led to a really funny gag, because Tu Lily decided, okay, this is the choker that the maker wanted to give you. But it was also revealed that she used her abilities to make it look like something else to other people. She made it look like her bra, and it was f***ing hilarious to see everybody's reaction to it, either just hysterical laughing or just angry as hell as Rudo has no idea what the Choker Maker looks like to other people. It's just a funny gag, and one of the few times where this type of thing actually works. I loved it. But Rudo talks with Countess of the Choker Maker and realizes that he's not the enemy. He's being used, and actually wants Rudo to destroy the Doll Festival to save the civilians. As we get a twist reveal of the villain of the arc, Mimo. Do you remember Mimo? Well, he's appeared a few times throughout the manga. He's essentially a radio newsman, essentially. He's popped up on TVs and radio stations, just talking to people, giving updates on trash storms and all that stuff. Turns out he's a villain this entire time. And he's actually kept Countess in prison for years. We learn in this arc that he helped Countess create the chokers and distributed them throughout the ground. And part of Mimo's ability, through his microphone vital instrument, is that if he ingests or basically takes the blood of somebody, he can use his microphone, the ability of Ruler, to control them completely. And thanks to Countess, and Countess needing blood for the chokers, he used that, and in combination of Countess's Watchmen series necklace that he has, we'll get into that when we get to his backstory, to amp up Mimo's abilities to control basically everybody at the Doll Festival who has a choker. And so they're all under Mimo's control, except for obviously Mimo's two hired henchmen, one being someone that's fully devoted to Mimo as a literal deity, and the other who's just a mercenary. She's just there for the funds and the lulz. And the money. She wants the money. She's a mercenary. She's a lot of fun. I love her design. Mimo's goal as using the Doll Festival as a stepping stone to basically try and rule over the ground using his abilities. He wants to rule over everybody. So this puts him in conflict with Team Akuta, the cleaners, as they went there without their chokers. Because if they're going to go and do something with the Choker Maker and find what's going on with him, they are going to need to not give away anything. So they went there without the chokers. So they're immune to Mimo's rule. And so they all begin fighting against Mimo and his two hired henchmen, while also trying to avoid hurting civilians as Mimo keeps hurling them at the team to try and stop them. We get some one-on-one fights with Ryo against Mimo's bodyguard with paper as a vital instrument, which is very unique and interesting. And Zanka against the girl that uses a bad vital instrument. It just has a bunch of baseballs using them as projectiles, which is insane. The way they beat all of them is actually really fun and engaging. And we also get a reveal of Rudo having his costume outfit being made by August, the sentiment put into all of these items, as there are things that August has had throughout his life, and gave them to Rudo for his costume. And Rudo has been using these to fight in this whole fight against Mimo and his forces, and all the civilians basically. Amo appears with Fu, carrying her, as she uses her vital instrument, the scent ability of her vital instrument, to basically take control of half the civilians to fight back against the civilians that Mimo still had under control. Basically a tug-of-war tsunami of people. That's an insane thing to say, but Mimo brings up her past and also gets into her mind as he overpowers her abilities, saying that a lack of experience is essentially what she is lacking right now. Yeah, she's as part of the team. She forgave Rudo for what had happened in their first interaction, and she wants to have a better understanding with him, and they're friends, obviously. But she still has that trauma from when she was a kid, and Mimo is playing into that, and using that lack of experience to basically make her think that she's weak and worthless. Engine obviously is telling her that to take this experience in order to grow stronger, but this is all up to her at the end of the day. While the lackeys of Mimo are being held back and Engine is seemingly trying to help against, the civilians, Mimo brings in two cleaners that were at the Doll Festival as their Team Danger, the Adoroy brothers. They were there at the Doll Festival. They have collars, so Mimo's controlling them. And what is their vital instrument? Two little doll guys. But what do their vital instruments make them do? What do their giver's ability make them do? They turn into giant mechs and start doing shit. And a bunch of combo moves. Rudo is basically fighting against two giant mechs That's what's going on, and it's causing a lot of problems. So they have to figure out how to basically free them. So Rudo utilizes the abilities that he has with the boots that August gave him to boost his speed to superhuman levels, dodging all of these massive attacks until he finally takes away the chokers that have been controlling Team Danger. And now they're free to help the main team in order to take on and to take down Mimo. Also, with this, there's also a bunch of like kaiju stuff going on in the background for the Team Danger to fight. And Ryo manages, alongside all this, with her killer instincts, to basically take down the bodyguard of Mimo, and at the same time, Zonka manages to basically defeat the girl with the baseball bat. And eventually the two of them fight together and basically knock out Mimo's entire group. It seems Mimo might be defeated, and Gauntis is fully rebelling, with Rudo's help, to fight back against Mimo. In this instance, Mimo threatens Gauntis with Tulili, as we get his backstory and how him and Tulili knew each other. When Gauntis was a child, he had a frail heart condition, and he was constantly having attacks. He needed an oxygen breather to help keep him stable. But what helped ease the pain was this, what is revealed to be a Watchman series necklace that he was given from his father, and that helped ease the pain. One day he meets this airheaded random girl that appears out of his window one day named Lily. And they get to know each other. Her hair is a mess covering her face. She's with Gauntis and his grandparents. But they realize that she has been horribly abused and has many injuries, and eventually we find out that Lily, after getting invited to come over as many times as possible to be with Gauntis' grandparents, she goes back to her old house where her parents abandoned her to essentially wait for her parents every chance they got. And eventually she was given the cane from Gauntis' grandparents for her to use, because, you know, she liked magic and all that stuff. And Gauntis, in his need to stay in contact with Lily, awakened his giver ability, seemingly through the catalyst of his Watchman amulet, and he created the very first choker, and he gifted it to Lily. And that kind of started the whole thing, as over the years, the two of them grew closer and were able to communicate with each other, and that's when he found out that Lily would constantly go back to her home alone and cry herself to sleep. This is a very heart-wrenching backstory for these two kids, who eventually found each other in order to, well, ease each other's pain. And as we know from the Watchmen series, what these things do to most people is that it drives them insane, but specific individuals that are missing a part of their humanity, an inner part of themselves, it does make them feel more whole. And that's what happened with Gauntis. And we then end up learning that through this backstory, when Gauntis was old enough, he wanted to make these chokers for other people, and Mimo approached him. Mimo got into his head, he manipulated him in order to mass produce the chokers to everybody on the ground, until it was revealed of Mimo's true intentions that he wanted control. He gave Gauntis an artificial heart so that he can walk around without assistance, so he wouldn't have these attacks. Mimo seemed like a good person to Gauntis, but Mimo tricked him, as eventually he mass-produced everything as he wanted to get rich and eventually to get control. Now, Gauntis didn't really realize all this because he was obsessed with his job to grow even more, until he eventually just wanted to stop him. Mimo reveals his true intentions and even pushes him towards it, basically revealing to him a bit of incentive to kind of have him keep working. And Mimo killed Gauntis' grandparents, presented their decapitated bodies in front of a table to Gauntis with their heads on a fucking platter. I don't know if I have to censor this or not. YouTube guidelines are fucking weird. It's a gruesome sight. One of the most gruesome things you see in this manga. But, yeah, Gauntis seemingly lost everything. And now through Rudo, he's helping him break through to get his revenge on Mimo and set things right. Now, Mimo is seemingly getting ready to mass control everybody. Rudo was trying to stop him, but at the last minute, he's shot. And his microphone, his vital instrument, is shot by one of the supporters from the, I believe, southern branch of the Cleaners, Milretta. My god, this woman is a badass. I knew she was badass when I looked at her design, but my god, does she look cool. As they team up with the Hellguard, as they're all getting ready to storm and help take down Maimo. And Engine managed to basically free everybody from their chokers. Take all their chokers off, and now all of them are ready to basically arrest Maimo. Maimo's legs have been shot, and he's on the ground. But Gauntis realizes, after it's revealed that Maimo has a choker on his leg, that Maimo has one last trick up his sleeve. And so Maimo uses his giver abilities on himself to change his soul into something beyond human. He wants something to be beyond human, and he turns into this strange angelic being, this very twisted and unsettling angelic monstrosity. Yeah, we have basically something that feels like a Final Fantasy villain in Gachiakuta. That's insane! Maimo altered the shape of his soul and body into this weird monstrosity angel thing, which is immune to all other types of weaponry. And with a flick of his fingers, he created a giant chasm in the Doll Festival area, knocking out everybody, even Engine, as he blocked the attack. And so now everybody's trying their best to kill it, and Maimo is silent throughout this entire altercation. But Zonka comes in order to face him. He has a hole blown in him, but with his last bit of strength beforehand, he slashes across Maimo's mouth with his vital instrument and breaks his mouth open, as it's revealed that vital instruments can injure him. Team Danger is helping as well with their kaiju mech things in order to fight back against Maimo, since vital instruments seem to at least do something. But if Maimo's design wasn't already unsettling enough, well, once Zonka gashes its face, his mouth opens up, and he starts talking.
Bring me that ass.
He's super creepy. But yeah, we have all this stuff going around, and Amo goes on to look at what's going on in the battlefield as everybody is being pushed to the brink. They're trying everything in their damnedest to fight Maimo, but nothing seems to be doing anything to him. They all seem powerless. Despite Zonka basically cracking open his mouth, no other attacks are really doing anything to him. As Maimo is talking about the sources of a giver's power, as the quality of a giver's power is based off of a giver's experience and ideology, and the strength of those powers is dictated by the extent of their experience and the strength of their thoughts, which we've seen multiple times with how vital instruments are brought into being, and more directly with Follo's awakening in the previous mini-arc. Even going into the freaking science of how these vital instruments work, like Rio's scissors, how are they so big and easy to lug around with her and use to fight, despite them being larger but not getting bigger in mass, and even drops a bunch of reveals about the ground. There were ancient rulers across the ground that were lost to time and destroyed, but their power seeped into the ground, and seemingly that's what started up the causing of anima and gave birth to the evolution of humans to create givers. And that also helped lead to the creation of trash beasts as well, seemingly. This is all speculation, but this is definitely a bits of lore to this world that is absolutely insane. But what's also insane is when Maimo brings up the concept of him becoming a god, as we get an awesome double-page spread with him talking about this as he looks over the landscape. Rudo remembers back to a book he was being read to by Recto, but he ends up telling Maimo, a human can't become a god. That's just stupid. And Gauntis doesn't know what he's talking about. But Maimo breaks Rudo's arm, well, second arm, and just goes on a freaking rant, telling him how does he know about gods. The name of God is nowhere to be seen anywhere, causing massive destruction, going utterly insane at this point, destroying his vital instrument and seeming to just lose all control. And it's revealed that, well, God doesn't seem to exist as a concept or anything that people worship on the ground. That seems to have been scrubbed from the history books for a long time. That is absolutely insane. Nobody knows what a god is, but Maimo wants to become it. But in order to fight this new monstrosity, Rudo comes up with an idea to do what Maimo did to himself. He uses Vital Instrument on his soul to turn him into something beyond human in order to fight Maimo. And obviously the risks of that are with Rudo's vital instrument. Once he deactivates his powers, he could disintegrate like every other vital instrument he created with his gloves. That's a risk. But also, he could potentially lose his humanity in the oncoming transformation, turning into something beyond human. And so, he wants to basically use Gauntus's vital instrument connected to him through the choker to make a link with 2 Watchmen series objects to boost his power. And the plan begins as Rudo has his first ever shonen-esque transformation, turning into a furry. I mean, turning into a giant werewolf. And the design is sick as hell, I'm not gonna lie. It's really, really freaking cool. Now, you initially think that Rudo did what he was saying he was going to do. Use his vital instrument on himself to give himself the transformation. But Gauntus gives him an idea based off of the past, off of a superhero cartoon that he watched with Lily. Basically telling him to use his vital instrument on the wolf hat that he has with the concept and image of a transformation to turn him into this wolf, and connecting the power of the both Watchmen series to boost the upgraded power of it. He's technically turning himself into something beyond human, but he's not using the power of himself with the potential of losing his humanity. So it's kind of going in a roundabout way to give himself a literal transformation through an object, which, again, like Power Rangers or Super Sentai and something like that, or Kamen Rider, which is honestly a really cool reference. As even Gauntus says, people love a good transformation, and that's honestly really damn cool. And this is basically where we're leaving off at, as Rudo is able to do severe damage to Maimo, breaking off a part of his head, and even managing to bite off a good chunk of his arms as well, creating just a bunch of chaos. Him and Maimo are going back and forth, clashing at each other, ripping each other apart essentially, and Rudo is actually managing to deal real damage and push Maimo back. As even Maimo is wondering how the hell this is possible, with Rudo dealing insane damage. Now, all this in the background, August is with part of the festival committee going into the background to see what's going on with security, finding new hires, all that stuff, trying to evacuate people. As also Maimo's lackeys are trying to basically blow the place up, as they set explosives up earlier as a backup plan in case anything went wrong. But it's revealed that Hyo, the swordswoman from Zonka's past that was part of the Hellguard, was there and basically took care of everything off screen. Yeah, she was just hired as security, and she quite literally just took out Maimo's lackeys with no issue and disarmed all the bombs beforehand because she just found them like that. Hyo's definitely going to join in the fight against Maimo a little bit later, as there's no reason that she is going to be here for no reason. But still, she basically stopped an even bigger disaster from happening just casually like it was nothing. With the fight with Rudo and Maimo, Rudo definitely has the upper hand, but Maimo is having internal dialogue with himself basically in a very goofy way to try and figure out a way to beat Rudo and get one over on him. When he comes up with the idea of saying something that would get Rudo off guard, something with his words that could definitely trip up Rudo, and what he says is that he can tell him who killed Recto, which is an insane thing to reveal, but there's no time for that, as, well, Maimo managed to deal a big blow to him and throws Rudo around a lot in this section. Heck, even drops the bombshell that Recto's murderer is in the cleaners. Not full on saying that it's Tamsi. Heck, he might even know it's Tamsi. But still, that is a vital piece of information that he's using to trip up Rudo and give himself the opening to kill him. But Gauntus stops him, in spirit form, literally using the power of friendship to boost up Rudo and also giving him confidence, telling him that he will use his powers to protect Rudo so Rudo can take down Maimo, because Rudo doesn't need to hold back to beat this guy, telling him that Maimo knows a bunch of information that he wants to know. And so Gauntus says to not hold back, as why not just beat the ever-loving hell out of him and just drag out the answers from him as he's taken down. And so Gauntus and Rudo are fighting together, Gauntus as the shield that Rudo needs, with Rudo as the sword. As their fight continues and they clash over and over again, with literally the most recent chapter just being a brief 6-page fight between Rudo and Maimo, and an old man is in the background. That's it. That's literally up to chapter 163 of the manga. Things have been insane. What the hell is going on anymore? There's no concept of gods. Maima wants to be a god. Rudo has a literal wolfman transformation. There's a bunch of things going on in the background we have no idea of. Also, there was just one brief panel at the start of chapter 161 where Tamsi is coming out of some weird regal castle. Is he from the sphere? Is he from a different area of the ground that's seemingly different? I don't know. It's just one singular page in the middle of this fight. Keirana is just doing everything she possibly can to feed us with a bunch of information and questions at the same time, while giving us high-stakes action and character development. Gachiakuta, what are you doing to me? Watch, this video is like 40 minutes long. Holy hell, I was supposed to make this shorter. But yeah, Gachiakuta has been absolutely insane in 2025 with the reveals of Maimo in this current arc, and I cannot wait for more. Things are getting insane. Rudo has a transformation, and Maimo knows answers to specific things. So I'm wondering if at the end of this arc, Tamsi's whole thing will be revealed to Rudo and the group, and I'm wondering if Gauntis will find a way to join in. Julili's still MIA at the moment. She's been seen outside of the whole dollhouse area, so something's gonna happen. He is there protecting Amo from the debris, so a lot of stuff's going on and Zanka needs medical attention. There's a lot going on. Do I think Rudo's going to be able to win, or do I think that something will happen with Hyo at the last minute and we will have a confrontation with her, or she'll help? Who knows? Either way, Gachiakuta is insane. I'm in love with this story and I cannot wait to potentially talk about this even more. Sorry for the long ass video, and I'm sorry to my editor who's going to be editing this video. Sorry, I wasn't expecting this to go as long, but you know me, I tend to talk people's ears off about stuff. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the recent events of Gachiakuta? Have they been great? Are you excited for more? And would you like me to talk about the manga more often? Like with chapter reviews every week or every other week, just to give you guys a bit of a consistent workflow and idea of the story? Let me know in the comment section down below. And once more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. With all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day. We're not even 200 chapters into this manga at this point, and I feel like we're only a third of the way through, or halfway through. I don't know what's going on anymore. But my god, I don't want this to end.